This
Good.
conference will now be recorded.
It's supposed to say this session is being recorded. I guess it doesn't say it anymore. But yeah, so I'm excited. This is it's Tuesday. Or is it Wednesday? It's Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025, and this is the um, 321 BizDev online networking session. This is the inaugural session for small business owners. And today we have at least one guest, maybe two, maybe three that may show up. But today we have at least one guest, and her name is Cherry out of Oklahoma. But before we bring on Cherry, I just want to let people know what this is all about. As a former sales manager at the corporate level and now a independent insurance broker in several states, I decided that I wanted to help a lot of small business owners, and especially those that have employee benefits, who offer employee benefits to their employees, as well as salespeople who are out there, trying to make it happen. And on the employer side, a lot of employers are experiencing a lot of high increases in their healthcare benefits. And as a former person who used to sell healthcare in California at the executive level, associate vice president, then before that I was a director and I worked in operations. I can tell you that when I met with employers and I had to tell them that their rate was increasing by 3, 4, 5%, that a lot of times what they would do is downgrade the benefits so that the employees could still pay the same thing, the same portion of their employee benefit payment, but the employees would get less healthcare benefits. In other words, they'd have to have a higher deductible. Some plans went from 3,000 to 5,000, and therefore the price that the employer paid and the portion that the employee paid didn't change that much. And for the most part, if the employee is healthy, that's not a big deal for the employee because a lot of healthcare costs have their origins in the inpatient. I mean, not a lot, but the most critical, expensive parts have their origins at the inpatient stage or like major accident stage where the person has to go into the ER. So with that said, I said, and even in corporate America, I used to always think, why can't the employer increase their revenue? And it wasn't a subject that I thought about a lot because I wasn't really involved in helping their business grow because I couldn't do that anyway as an employee myself of another company. I couldn't go in and say, Bob, what you really need to do increase your sales. I couldn't do that. I wish I could, but I couldn't. So when I became independent, I started thinking more about that. But in the meantime, I had to increase my own sales as an independent salesperson because when you're independent, you no longer have that big brand to attach yourself to. Uh, at the corporate level, there's only about 5 to 6, sometimes 7 competitors in the industry that I was in, which was health insurance. But as an independent, all of a sudden you have, if not several hundred, you have several thousand competitors, such as like CPAs. There's not just one CPA in a city, there may be 200, there may be 400 bookkeepers, dentists, there may be 1,000 dentists in a metropolitan area. Same thing with other types of services or industries like attorneys. Everyone knows there's like hundreds of attorneys that when you drive your car, you see their billboards. You're listening to the radio, and they're on the radio every between every song. And it just goes on and on. So as an independent person, I had to make sure, or I learned the hard way that I had to make sure I had to learn the hard way how to improve my sales skills. So so the purpose again of this online networking is to help people who want to be helped. Now, a lot of people may say, "Well, that's a lot of salespeople that want to be helped," and that could be in stages where you have like very top stage, maybe 5% that really want to be helped, and they will raise their hands in some kind of way, just like I did back in 2009, 2010. Then the next stage are people who are doing okay, and they're okay with whatever sales type of, of results that they're getting. They're okay with that. Then you have a lot of the last stage, which they're trying to find any type of gimmick that will work to increase their sales. And, uh, so those are the different stages. But I will say is there are the people at the top, at least, they are often letting people know, they're letting themselves know that it's they want to improve. They're letting themselves know, they're letting other people know that they want to improve. And I know for myself, I sort of subconsciously let myself know that I wanted to improve because I was always out and about looking for the experts in the industry. And I was so fortunate. It was a blessing from God that I met two individuals at the right time. Maybe I should have met those two individuals a year before, but I met two individuals. And you know what I'm talking about, Cherry. I mean, I met
Yeah.
two individuals that helped me in a sort of an indirect way, but only because I was looking hard. And one of those individuals was a elder law attorney out of Boston, and his name was Harley Gordon. Not not Harley Davidson, the motorcycle company, but Harley Gordon. And he still is an elder law attorney out of Boston. And he was meeting with agents. He put out an ad and he said how to sell long-term care. So I went to this meeting, and um, the first thing he said was, "I'm gonna tell you that you can't sell long-term care." I said, I didn't pay $150 to hear a person tell me how I can't sell long-term care. I came to hear how I can sell
Yeah.
it. So that was a very interesting start. But what I learned from him was you really can't sell anything to anybody. People must find themselves wanting what you're selling through a series of questions. I'm really taking uh, a short route to that conclusion. The second person I met was Mark Arolo, out of Pleasanton. He sold his software stocks in Silicon Valley and started a long-term care business. And through a network of people that I knew, he wanted me to work with him. So he invited me to spend a 4 day, like intense, like 10 to 12 hour a day training at his Pleasanton office. So I accepted it. And in that process, he had this book. And this book was sort of like a step by step way of selling long term care. But what interested me about that book was, I mean, it wasn't that there was a book, it was the fact that he had a system of doing it. And he was one of the first independent salespeople. Like, he owned his independent business, so it wasn't a big corporate thing attached to his business. It was just Mark Arola and his wife, and he had this long-term care company. Now, he had some big names, but that doesn't mean anything in the insurance business. We're especially selling long-term care. It doesn't mean anything. So he had a system, and I appreciated what he did, because as a software engineer, I already knew that his thought process was a process itself, just about everything. That's how he earned a living writing software programs. So he had a few sections in his book that I actually copied and started my own consulting firm because I was so impressed with what how he helped me sell long-term care better. And so that's what I mean by, people who raise their hands. And I've met several people who have raised their hands over the years. And like I said, it's not many people. And sometimes you have to ask people certain questions for them to want to raise their hand. So I'm not trying to say that there's not a lot of people who want to improve their sales processes and systems. A lot of times it takes asking a person, if they're doing okay in their business. And that is the first question that, you ask someone, are you okay with your business? Because a lot of people they don't know that they can improve their business with a better or more predictable sales system or sales process. And one of these people is our first guest today on July 2nd. Her name is Cherry, and she is out of the state of Oklahoma. And I met Cherry back, I want to say back in 2010, 2011. So, Cherry, good morning, and how are you doing?
Good morning, and actually I'm doing very well. Nice and cool right now.
Yes, yes, and thanks for getting up an hour earlier to be a guest on the first uh, online networking show that will be broadcast over many platforms. But so please, Cherry, you have up to 4 minutes. I know you don't need that long, but please tell our listeners about yourself, what you do, and what type of anything you want to tell us about yourself. And I want to add this before you start. Um, a lot of small business owners, your future prospects, your future clients, they already know if you call yourself a dentist that you're a dentist. They already know if you're an attorney, you are an attorney, and you do a lot of legal things in our justice system. But sometimes they want to know about you. So, Cherry, please introduce yourself and tell us anything. And I won't interrupt you. Tell us anything that you would like to tell our audience about yourself.
Okay, and I don't mind if you want to interrupt and ask me a question or remind me of something.
Okay.
My educational background is nursing. I was an RN, and I actually owned my own business when I was living in California. And so I had a contract with the state of California to do geriatric care management for people who were on Medi-Cal, which is the same as Medicaid. And it was to help them get out of skilled nursing and into an assisted living, because it was going to save the state about half the money that they were paying for skilled nursing. And so that's what I did. I interviewed them, and we got them into an assisted living, and then I monitored their care. So then when I ended up getting out of that business, I was asked if I wanted to do life insurance. And I thought, well, okay, I bought my own life insurance years before when my husband was alive and we had kids. And so you always need life insurance when you have kids, always. And so I thought, well, sure, why not? Looked good, people want that. And when I got into learning about it, the thing I realized was that I didn't know anything about sales. In my nursing business, people were calling me, and they were asking me to come to the assessment and get this person into assisted living, because most of them had dementia, and it was very difficult to leave them at home. So I didn't know what I was doing when I got into this. And so when I went out on some initial appointments, the person who was supposed to mentor me I watched everything that he did, which was fine, but we didn't get any sales out of that. And so I'm thinking, okay, so now what do I do? And along about that time, Rick came along, and he was allowed to come into the group and teach sales. And because I thought it was something that was very difficult, you got to know exactly everything perfect to say, and I really wasn't real happy with salespeople trying to manipulate me. I don't like to manipulate people, but the plan and the process that Rick taught was
Oh, and
to
let me just add for my listeners,
okay.
my nickname is Rick. So,
Oh,
but my no, that's okay. That's okay. I was going to say that some of the people that may call in may say Rick, but my formal name is Clarence. But so now everybody knows that Rick equals Clarence. So continue, Jerry.
okay. um, anyway, it was very fascinating because the way he taught it was very, very, because I was very uncomfortable not knowing what to say, how to say it, when to say it, whatever. And what he taught was how to actually just open a conversation with someone and start talking with them and learning about what their needs were, learning about briefly about their families and their goals and their needs. And so when I started talking to them and explaining to them what was available, they were more willing to listen because, first of all, I took an interest in them. And people want to know that you care about them and that you have an interest in them. And so that was the first thing that I did. And I saw that it was people were more willing to respond that way because I bought a life insurance policy based upon what it could give me because I didn't have a lot of the things that it said in there. I hadn't worked all my life. I had kids and I homeschooled them until they went to high school. So I didn't have a regular income. I didn't have a retirement plan. I didn't have anything I could draw on if I couldn't work for a while due to an illness of some sort. So the life insurance policies that I was selling appealed to me. So when I went in and started talking to people, it also appealed to them because it gave them the opportunity to know that was available to them, but it was also available to them as a benefit for them for end of life, or it was a benefit to them for if they were to pass away, the family would get something. And so it was a privilege to talk to them because for me it was a personal experience, and so they could tell that I wasn't just out selling something, that it was something that was important to me as well, and I'd actually done what I was asking them to do. And so that was one of the things that really I appreciated, because a lot of the time it was, well, how do you start talking about this? You're standing in line at the grocery store and you kind of start talking to someone who's behind you or in front of you or just at church or at work or maybe at a meeting you're going to. How do you come up with the subject? How do you start getting into that conversation? And that's what Rick taught, and it made it so the word that comes up to me is comfortable. I didn't feel like I was trying to do something that was difficult. I didn't know what I was doing, make sure I'm saying the right thing, kind of thing. And you do have to make sure you're saying the right thing, but I found mostly it was the people were interested because I was interested in them to begin with.
Excellent.
Anything else?
No, that's
What else?
it. That's
Okay.
I mean, the thing is that as we're both in the same financial services industry, and you're in Oklahoma. I think you're also licensed in Florida still.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so you're licensed in Oklahoma and Florida. And for people who may not know, financial services is one of the hardest industries to be successful in because you're talking to people about something that may or may not, most likely may or will, but may not happen in the future. For instance, like death is definitely something that's going to happen, but you don't know when. A person could get hurt, and that's what I mean by may not. So that may not happen, or it may happen. Accidents, all those types of things, could happen. So it's one of those things where you're selling a product that the benefit will not be able to be used until 2 years out, 5 years out, 20 years out. So it makes the sale of that product not like you're giving someone instant gratification.
Right.
When you buy something and you have it in your hand and you're able to use it right away, that's an instant gratification sale. Like whether you're buying like like a TV, or like some type of jewelry, or some type of tool you're using for your car or in your garage, you get to use it within 4 to 6 hours after you buy it.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about a service that's not instant gratification, or I should say, even if you are an attorney, who knows when a person's going to need an attorney, but you have to always be out there, you know, promoting your business, because you never know when someone's going to have an accident, or they need some type of defense, a representation, or maybe the time is now right for a contract to be written, a business contract. So that's different than financial services, but at the same time, it has similarities to other industries. But I want to thank you, Cherry, for being a guest. And what I'd like to do now is talk for another 10 minutes and just close us out with other subjects involving how to improve your business. So thank you, Cherry. You can listen in if you like, and please
Okay.
chime in if you like. But I'm going to
Okay.
move to what a sales system is, and the consulting firm 321 Biz Dev or Biz Development is that sales system I created. Started in 2011, 2012, and November 1st, 2014 is the first day of that sales system. And I tell this story all the time. It was about I want to say 1 week after I finalized it, and a good friend of mine, Brian, who now owns a high definition video company security system down in Fresno. We were both real estate agents, and Brian said, "Hey, Clarence," or Rick, I think he said Rick too. He said, "There's this guy that has this home builder project out in a little south of Plumas Lake. Yeah, Plumas Lake, a little south of Marysville, California, which is about 40 miles northeast or northwest of Sacramento. And he has this problem with these lots. He hired a broker to sell these homes, these lots, and all the lots are wired with utility, plumbing, even internet type services. But the broker has only sold one lot in a year, and he wants to know what is being done wrong. So what I did is I had this one page with 20 questions on it. So it's like 2 pages with 20 questions on it. So I met with his name was Virgil. So Brian and I went to this model home, empty, just one of those model homes that people could see first before they bought the home or requested their home to be built. And so we sat down with Virgil. Make a long story short, I'm asking him these questions. Questions about him, about his project, how did it get started, why did he start it, what type of other interesting points that the home project was using, and what was important to him and what could be important to consumers. And after I finished question 10, Virgil said, "Stop." I looked at Brian. Brian looked at me, and we thought we were going to get kicked out. And Virgil said, "You know what, Brian and Rick, you have asked me more questions about this home builder, this project to sell these homes than the broker has. So you've asked me more questions in 20 minutes than the broker has all year. The broker doesn't even know the answers to these questions that you asked." And he said, "I don't want to hear the other questions. What I'm willing to pay you guys what I need to do to get this going, to fix what I need to do to get these homes sold." So he wrote Brian a check, he wrote me a check, and then wrote us another, 2 checks 90 days later. And within 7 months, he had sold 60 lots.
Wow.
And it was at that time that I learned that it wasn't about it's not about the salesperson promoting their product, because if you are an attorney, you have the same services as the next attorney. If you are a dentist, you have the same service as the next dentist. You went to Seattle Dental School, this person went to Temple Dental School in Philadelphia. It's not a big deal. What's important, like you said, Cherry, is you, as a salesperson, you get to know that person, and you're asking the right questions. That's the most important thing, that you ask the right questions, the person you're meeting with, because a lot of sales psychologists say that if an item costs like a lot of money, like $1,000 and up, that potential customer is not interested in listening to you talk as a salesperson. If they're going to write a check for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, the last thing they want to know is how good you are, and how many awards that you have won, and that you were in this magazine and you were the top producer. That's the last thing they want to know, if you care about them. And so it's a very interesting subject when I studied it. In fact, when I wrote the 321 BizDev system, I think I consumed about 8,000 hours in checking different PhD papers. My son had access to this university library system, and I just want to let people know, the libraries that we walk into the public library, like in our communities, those libraries are nothing compared to the university libraries, because they have PhD studies on just about anything that you want to look up. And these people, those PhDs, they got their PhDs by proving something to be accurate, or a high probability of something being factual. They don't hand out PhDs like candy. So
Right.
so these PhDs, when they wrote these papers, they had to gather a whole bunch of statistics. And the PhDs that wrote the papers on consumer behavior, they gathered all the statistics and basically said, when the ticket price is high, and I use a number of $1,000 compared to something that's $29.99 that you can buy, like some kind of knickknack, or cap or piece of jewelry that you can buy for $29.99. When the price is $1,000 or higher, people's brains act differently about buying something. It's a total, and they said 70% of the people do not want the flash bang sale. They don't want to know how great you are. They want to really believe that this check that they're writing, the credit card that they're swiping, is going to bring them more value than just that product, because they're really buying the product, and they're buying the experience that you're offering to them. They're not just buying that product, So to close, I just want to let people know that there are 5 front end sales activities in the sales process and the sales systems. And those five front end sales activities are contacting, prospecting, setting the appointment, closing, and getting zero cost referrals. And on this online networking sessions, we will explore the highlights of each one because, and I'll just say this: if you leave one city, the city that you're in today, and you go to a brand new city, and I know some people say, I heard this friend of mine just moved from Dallas to Sarasota, Florida. She is doing the right thing, and I know she's going to be successful because she said, I'm in this new city of Sarasota, Florida. She just left Dallas, Texas. And she goes, I'm out making connections. I'm out meeting people. And this lady, she's a real estate broker. She's like 5'2", probably 130 pounds, 120 pounds, and she's meeting people every day in Sarasota. So I don't care where you go. If you move from one place to another, you can be in business. Matter of fact, you are in business the day you arrive, as long as you start contacting people. Because a lot of business owners, they look at sales as, well, if I'm not closing transaction, I'm not selling. And I beg to differ. The moment you start contacting people is the time when your sales kind of cycle has started, not just when you close and someone writes you a check or someone slides their credit card. It starts as soon as you say hello to someone and you start that process. So if I went to a new city, if I went to Kansas City, if I went to Tulsa or Buffalo, New York, the day that I arrive, the next morning when I open my eyes and I go out and start running into people, that's when your business starts. So anyway, I want to thank people. If people want to get in touch with me, my phone number is 866-901-9876. My website is insforsure.com. That's igloo, neighbor, son, forsure.com. Take care and have a fantastic week. Bye-bye. Thank you, Cherry.
Thank you.